I'm going to do a quick introduction. People are going to join as we go. Just start with a little highlights of Jimmy's career. Obviously, world champion, two-time Olympic medalist, Paris champion, one of the greatest tournaments in the world, Germany champion, and then coach of two-time Olympic champion Kayla Harrison. On top of that, I've had the pleasure of really seeing Jimmy, from a young age. We were kind of on the same team together for a long time. He U.S. and Canada, even like going back to like Junior Pan Ams and Quebec Opens and Ontario Opens. And when I retired as a young coach, and Jimmy's not going to remember this because again, he's such a busy person, but I think it was 1998. I sent Jimmy an email. I was a young coach. I was working with a bunch of clubs and then trying to figure out, how does a guy come from a small judo country, okay, US, Canada, we're small judo countries, right? But he comes from a small area, from a small club, not a program, like not a big national program, and yet be able to like have these incredible results. So I sent him an email, and he sends me this nice email, like itemized all these ideas and everything in there. And it was 1998, so he just won Paris. Right? And he's going through this, and obviously there's the international travel, the training when he was young, and all these things. But there's one part that really caught my eye. He gave me this. Well, this is what my dad did for me. Okay, he says he would line up like 10 guys from the club, and then I would have to fight them for 2 minutes each. Okay, there's no rest in between. 10. I'd get the killers at the beginning, and I'd get the killers at the end. But in the middle, I might have a green belt. But after you've done like 5 rounds, you're quite tired, and that green belt is pretty hard. And in my head, I was like, I think he'd be the only guy that's won Paris that actually said they trained with a green belt to be able to prepare for Paris, which is like a testament to how the system works, how mentally tough, and the belief system that he had, that it didn't even think, like, that's just my normal training. I will train with who I have. I will work as hard as I possibly can, and we're going to move forward. And I'm going to be the best that I possibly can be. And for me, that was like, again, a small statement, but it really kind of like resonated with me that, again, you know what? It starts with belief. It starts with your ability to say, hey, I can actually do this. And then, you move forward. And I think Jimmy's just fantastic in the way that, as a coach and as an athlete, just a fantastic role model for everybody in judo. And I think this will be a great session. I'm just going to turn it over to Jimmy now.
Thank you, Ewan. Thank you very much. And what's interesting about that story, and what maybe some of you might not have comprehended, is that in that process, those other 10 athletes, they are not doing any rounds. They are not doing any randori while I'm training. They are just on the sideline waiting for their chance to give me hell for the 2 minutes that they have in their system. That's it. They're going as hard as they can for 2 minutes, and then when they're done, they're done. But they're training me. Everybody was preparing and helping me get ready for the biggest event. And so not only the green belts, but they're coming with ferocity. They're coming with all of the energy, all the enthusiasm they have to give you the best 2 minutes that they have. And so that's what makes that drill that much tougher. And what I'll say also is that many of those same guys, we have those club players at my dojo still today. They're 45, they're 50 years old. They took their lumps for me. They took their lumps for Kayla. They took their lumps for Travis. And now they're still taking their lumps today for the next generation. Many of those same guys that helped me prepare are still at my club today, still helping the next generation prepare. That's how much they loved being a part of that whole process. And that's a tribute to the club, because at the end of the day, we ultimately represent them, right? And they're proud to be a part of that community. And now, so we've created, kind of a magnificent environment, for teamwork like that. And I remember when the Russian Olympic team came to my dojo after their success at the 2012 Olympics. The entire Russian national team came for 1 month here to train. And when they showed up at my dojo, they looked around and they said, "Hey, where are all the judo players? Where are the people that Kayla trained with? And where's the people that Travis trained with?" And I said, "Right there, that yellow belt, that green belt, that black belt, that kid, yeah, we have, 7, 8, 10 black belts, but the rest of them were just, your regular dojo players." And they looked at the lineup of 20 people and they said, "No, this can't be it. There's no way that this is it." So it's funny you say that, but it's the truth. And that's what how we still train today. So anyway, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you all for taking your time on a Saturday. I don't know how it is in Canada, but today is beautiful. It's one of the best days we've had of the year so far. It's probably 65 degrees and sunny outside right now. Thanks for spending your Saturday afternoon with me. I'm here for you. I will share whatever I have in my brain and my heart with all of you. But as Yohan said, along the way, if you have any questions, if you want to stop me, raise your hand. I want you to get the most out of this you possibly can. So please don't be shy and don't hesitate to ask questions along the way. Okay. So I'm hopeful that there's some young kids out there that are aspiring to be to be the best they can be, whether it's national champion or world medalist someday or Olympic team member. I'm hopeful that there's some kids out there listening that this will get through. But if not, it's up to the coaches to pass this information on to them. And before we get started, I just wanted to preface that the topic is going to be on mental training, right? Mental training, mental development, preparation for game day. But before we get there, everybody does have to realize that the physical work, all of the physical training has to be done. Has to be done. That's a matter of fact, right? We have to do the physical in order for the mental to work. So we can't just think that, we live in a fantasy world where we're going to set goals and we're going to, visualize and we're going to tell ourselves we're the best in the world without doing the physical part. Yeah, there's no question. All the physical preparation has to be done. And that means your judo training, your randoris, your technical training, your physical conditioning, your work in the weight room, your workout in the sprints or running steps. You've got to do all the physical preparation in order for the mental to be effective. So that's number one. And the second is, in order to be successful in anything, but, specifically in judo, we've got to be professionals. We can't pretend and kid ourselves into thinking that we're going to be a champion without making the necessary sacrifices, right? So convincing the students that you've got to be a professional in every aspect. It's not just judo training. It's a commitment to practicing religiously, of never skipping practice, of following through on what your commitments are, of being at practice all the time, of improving your judo and the willingness to work on your weaknesses and work on things that you don't like to do in the dojo so that you can get better. It's about giving 100% effort every time you're on the mat. You're only there for a short period of time, right? Whether it's an hour and a half practice or a 2-hour practice, as soon as you walk in the door from the time you leave, you work. 100% effort, get better every day. It's also about never being too good for the sport, right? Meaning, oh, well, I already won Paris, so therefore I don't have to fight in my national championships. I don't have to compete in the Quebec Open. I don't have to do these little tournaments anymore because they're beneath me. No, if your goal is to be the best in the world and you haven't reached that yet, or your goal is to be national champion and you haven't reached that yet, you should be willing to go anywhere and do anything to reach your goal. That means compete often, compete frequently, because those competitions are just practices. They're getting you ready for the next time so that you have a habit of winning and a habit of doing the right things, so that when the time comes and it's your time to step up and win the big one, you've made the investment in yourself to do that. It's about dieting. It's about all of those, putting all those pieces together so that there's no stone unturned as to why you didn't reach the pinnacle, right? So that's number two. I want to talk about professionalism. And the third thing I want to talk about before we get to the mental part is that today's world is all about social media. It's all about instant success. Every kid, everybody, when you open up your feed and you start looking through Instagram, Facebook, whatever, it's always a picture of somebody with a medal around their neck, holding their arms up. They just won something. Nobody posts that they got their butt kicked at an event. Nobody posts stuff that's bad. Everybody wants to post how great they did and how awesome everything is. But that's not reality. And I think what I want everybody to understand is that everybody fails. Everybody loses. Everybody has tough times. You know, you only see and hear the champions' great successes. You never hear about their failures. And so one of the things that I have done in my coaching career is I've shared my darkest moments, my saddest moments, the times that I failed and I felt like I failed the worst. I've shared those with the athletes because it's important that they understand that they are going to struggle. And I struggled too. I was not always a success story. I didn't always win every tournament. Sure, Yohan talked about world champion, two-time Olympic medalist, whatever the results were, but there were far more times where I didn't win and I didn't think I could win, or I had really bad days and I was down in the dumps. And, you know, I think it's important for those athletes to understand that they are going to fail, they are going to get injured, they are going to suffer, that the road to success is not one that just goes straight up. You set your goal, you'll achieve it, you go to the next one, you achieve that, and you keep climbing. No, it's going to be a rocky road, and you're going to go up and you're going to go down, and you're going to come up a little bit, and then you might go way down. But you've got to understand that the path to success, it's not an easy one, but it is possible, right? It is doable. We've proven that. And so a couple of, you know, darker moments, I'd say, for me, you know, I won't dwell on these too long, but I think they're important. My entire life, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wanted to represent my country at the Olympic Games. And I trained from 5 years old, went to every national tournament, went to every training camp in the summers and sacrificed my life, went around the world as a young teenager and didn't have normal teenage years, traveled around the world to make my first Olympic team and did it in 92. It was the happiest moment of my life up to that point. Got to the Olympic Games, you know, having sacrificed all this time. And when I fought in Barcelona, Spain, you know, I won 2 matches and then I lost to the guy from Japan, Maruyama. I lost to him in the 3rd round. And then I watched all these guys step up on the podium, the Brazilian, the Cuban, the Hungarian. They all won their Olympic medals. And I remember sitting up in the stands with my father, my hands in my, you know, holding my head up, just crying, thinking, man, I gave up my whole life for this moment. And I failed. I didn't win. And all those guys who were on the podium, some of them I never lost to in my life. My record's like 10-0 against some of them. Never lost before the Olympics, after the Olympics, didn't, undefeated. But it wasn't meant to be. And I felt like it wasn't worth it, right? I felt like at the time I was so down on myself and so had given so much of myself to put myself in a winning moment that it was devastating to go through that. And then, you know, re-energize, remotivate, get focused, get ready for 96 Olympics. Okay, let's do this again. I know I can win. I can beat those guys. Let's do it. Only to get thrown on my head in a tournament in Korea and suffer 2 bulging discs in my neck in 1994 and almost be paralyzed. You know, to the point where 6 months of my life, I sat around in my house with my arm against my chest and my neck pinned down, not being able to lift my head up off my chest and having my entire right side of my body just atrophied to nothing, you know, to the point where I couldn't even do a push-up or bench press a bar. Or the nerves just didn't work, you know. So that was a very low point in my career where the coach, the doctor pretty much said, you're never going to play sports again. You know, it was my senior year in high school. I was supposed to go on and compete in the NCAAs in wrestling, and I'm 2 years out from the Olympics in Atlanta, in my home country, and I have all these goals and aspirations. And here I am faced with massive adversity thinking I'm not even going to get a shot to do it. So that's a dark time. And so when kids get injured and kids suffer and they don't have the chance to reach their goal at that moment, it's time to sort of let them know that they're not alone. They're not the only person that has ever gone through this. We've all champions have suffered. We saw the great Koga, pass away this week. That guy was an inspiration to me. I trained many times with him. I celebrated and went out many times with him in Japan. Super fun guy, but the guy blew his knee out 2 weeks before the Olympic Games in 1992, and he went on to win a gold medal at that Olympics. He could barely walk. Somehow he made it through. So you have to understand, like, everybody suffers, and we don't always win. Quick story on Kayla Harrison. In 2010, this is after she's junior world champion, junior world silver medalist. Kayla's goal was to, win the Worlds and win the Olympics. And I remember in January of 2010, I said to Kayla, hey, our team is going down and we're going down to the Starrett Cup in New York City, and we're going to fight in this tournament, and I want you to come. She looked at me like, is there going to be anybody for me to fight? I said, I'm sure there's somebody going to be there. When you get there, we'll figure it out. And sure enough, 2 Canadians ended up showing up. Catherine Roberge and Amy Cotton both were there, and it was a 3-person division round robin. And at the time of Kayla's career, that was a very tough. Those were tough girls, tough matches. They were both ranked in the top 15 in the world at the time. And they had a 3-man round robin, and Kayla lost both fights. She took 3rd place at the Starrett Cup. And it's just about getting matches and trying to get better. And that was January of 2010. Well, fast forward 9 months later, now we're in, October 2010 in Tokyo at the World Championships. And guess who wins a gold medal in Tokyo that year? Kayla Harrison. So, you've got to, like I said at the beginning, you've got to be willing to do anything to reach your goal. You can't be too good or too proud, not to compete in the lower level events. You've got to do everything it takes to put yourself in a position to win. And I think that's what the message I want you to hear before we start talking about the mental part. And I can tell you that I believe that everybody does the physical training, right? We know that. I mean, the judo players in the world today are super strong, super powerful. They put tons of time, in the judo room, in the weight room, out in the track, out in the mountains. They're professionals. They have professional coaches now looking after them. Our sport has really elevated. They're full-time athletes today, right? They do nothing but pretty much focus on judo and how they're going to win in that competition. But the one part that I don't think everybody does, and I think what separates the great athletes from the rest, is really the mental part of the game. I don't think enough time is spent on mental training, mental preparation, and getting the athletes ready to go so that they are, they just unleash themselves when it comes time to compete. And so that's what the topic of today is really mental training. So I'm going to start with goal setting. Right? That's the first thing. That's the first exercise I do with any athlete that comes to my program is I sit down, I have a meeting with them, and I ask them point blank, like, what are you here for? What is it you want to do in my program? And it varies, right? Some people want to, be on the national team and they want to travel and they know realistically that they're never going to be a world champion. They're never going to be an Olympic champion because they've come to me too late. They might already be 25, 26 years old and they've got too many bad habits and not enough experience to sort of get to that level. But that's okay. Everybody has to figure out what their goals are, right? And we have an exercise where they actually map out 3 goals that they want to achieve for themselves in judo and 3 goals outside of judo, 3 life goals that they would like to achieve this year. And I tell them when they set goals, set realistic goals, right? Pick a goal for yourself that is realistic. I want one to be a stretch where you don't really think it's possible, but if you ever did it, you'd be super excited. Right? You'd be delighted if goal number 1 came true. Goal number 2, I want to be something that, you're passionate about, that you really hope can happen this year. You're going to be disappointed if it doesn't. And then I want to pick a third goal that's sort of, something that, it might not be national champion. It might be to be on the podium. It might be something that at the end of the day, you'll be really proud that you achieved it, but it's something that you hope is going to happen this year for sure. And I want you to set that as a goal. So 3 goals in judo, 3 goals outside of judo, because I do believe that a balanced athlete becomes the best athlete. It's somebody who doesn't have all of their eggs in the judo basket, where if they lose, they're a failure, and if they win, a success. We have to have something outside of judo that makes us happy, makes us feel fulfilled, right? And it can be school, it could be a job, it could be working towards a degree, it could be getting some experience in a line of work that you're going to do for your future. It's important to me that they have something outside of judo where they can feel like they're, proud of what they're doing and what they're accomplishing, right? And that should pretty much be matter of fact that it's going to happen, the outside judo stuff. So, and I actually tell them that the goals have to be measurable. A lot of our people set goals that you really can't measure, where they say, I want to get better at this. Well, how do we measure whether you're better at it or not? It has to be something at the end of has to be something that by the end of the year or by a certain date, we know whether you did it or you didn't do it, And so make sure that it's something that you can actually quantify and actually say yes or no to as being a measurable goal. And then I want them to set goals that actually really motivate them, that are going to get them excited to get up every day, because ultimately the reason why you're training, the reason why you're sacrificing, the reason why you're grinding in the classroom or whatever it is you're doing is because you want to reach your goals. And the only way you can get there is you've got to be motivated, passionate, excited to want them to happen, right? And we have to know that there are going to be obstacles along the way. You are going to have a bad practice. You are going to have a bad competition, but we keep the eye on the end goal, which is the measurable goal that we're focused on. All this other stuff, whether we win or not, just helps us reach that end goal that we've set for ourselves. So it's important that they commit to these goals and that they commit to it in writing. It's really powerful to put it on paper. It's one thing to say my goal is this, but when you actually write it down and see it for yourself, it's another level of commitment. And so I do make them write it down. I make them turn in their goal sheet to me and actually hand me a piece of paper. So I have goal sheets for every athlete every year they've been in my program. And we actually go back at the end of the year and we look at those goals and we evaluate whether we did it, we didn't do it. I actually make them write a plan of how they're going to get there as well, where they actually say, I'm going to do this many reps, I'm going to do this much in the weight room, whatever it is, they're going to map it out on how they're going to improve themselves, to help reach their goals. But we have meetings on it afterwards and we talk about it. And when there's a commitment in writing, not only do they give it to me, but they keep it for themselves. And I tell them, listen, put it on the door of your bedroom. The first thing you see when you get up is your goal, right? Put it above your bed. First thing you wake up, it's right there on your ceiling. Wherever you're going to see that thing every day, I want you to remember what your goals are, and I want you to remember that that's going to hold you accountable for going to practice and not skipping, for giving that extra effort in the weight room, for running a little bit faster. Like, these goals have to motivate you to do more, right? To help that little extra inch that you need to get the most out of. Two things that I share with you in terms of writing your goals down. In 2012, I remember my goal meeting with Kayla Harrison in 2012, right? It's January 2012. We're starting the new year. Okay, Kayla, show me your goal sheet. And I told you, every athlete usually sets 3 goals, athletic goals, 3 judo goals. And she had one line on her goal, and that was it. And it said Olympic champion, period. There was no other goal sheet. There was no other list on that thing. And I thought to myself, you know what? You're right. That is the right way to do it. Like, that's it. No one's ever done it before, right? At that point in time in America's career, no one had ever been Olympic champion from America. And instead of writing Olympic champion on the first line and then Olympic medalist on the second line, and then maybe something else below that, it hit me. If she puts Olympic medalist, that means she's accepting failure. She's accepting the fact that she's not going to win it. So by putting the ultimate goal as the only goal, it's all in or it's nothing, it really set the mindset that her goal is just to be Olympic champion. And I don't blame her. And so I remember, like, when she won that Olympics in 2012, I actually had saved that goal sheet on my phone, and I actually sent her the screenshot as a text, and I said, hey, do you remember this? You remember this? Olympic champion. You're right. You did it. You did it. You know what I mean? It was so powerful that it's something I share with a lot of people, and I really think that it's an important part of the mindset going into those games and what she wanted and why she got it when no one else had ever done it. The other thing, just a little thing I used to do in terms of goal setting, and it's kind of that commitment in writing and believing in yourself. In my career, when I was competing, when I used to get the pool sheets, the printed pool sheets, because they actually used to be on paper, not online all the time. We didn't have an online anything back then. But I used to get the pool sheet, and I used to actually take the pool sheet and fill it out. And the only name that was on that pool sheet was Pedro. And so wherever I was on the bracket, I would write Pedro beat him, and my name would climb the pool sheet all the way to the end till I was first. And then I would write it in first place, Pedro. And every time I got my pool sheet when I was in Europe traveling with Ewan and all the Canadian team and guys, like, I would do that. It was one of my things that I did all the time, just to visualize I was beat this guy and I'm moving forward in the bracket and I'm the champion of the tournament. That was one of the things that I always did in my career to help me set the mindset that I was going to win the event. So that's a little bit about goal setting and the importance of sort of committing to something in writing and getting your athletes to commit to something in writing. Does anybody have any questions at this point just on the importance of setting goals and having both life goals and judo goals? If not, I can keep going and we can wait for the end for questions.
I've got a question there, Jimmy.
Yeah.
What do you do halfway through the season? You notice that one of your athletes is just like not putting the effort into that goal, and they really haven't come and talked to you that their goal might have changed. Do you have like some sort of way of just kind of like, doing an intervention?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to grab we have accountability. Accountability is one of our main focuses here, is like, be accountable for yourself and your actions, right? If you've committed to me that you want to do a certain thing, I'm going to hold you accountable and I'm going to talk to you on a regular basis, right, about that. So if somebody's failing miserably, if somebody's, not showing up to practice or not working as hard as they should or not going to the events that they've committed to going to, you have to address it. You have to pull them aside. It doesn't have to be a big, long meeting, but you have to pull them aside and question, like, hey, what's going on? Mentally, you don't seem right. Tell me what's going on. What are we doing? Can we get you back on track? And what's it going to take to get you back on track? Right? Because at the beginning, you told me these were your goals, and I want to help you get there. But what I'm seeing out of you is we're not on a good path. So what can we adjust? What can we do? How can I help you get back on track? And you do have to. A lot of athletes, I think, they're too afraid to come when they're suffering. They're too afraid to come to the coach when they know they're starting to fail. And it's sort of this spiral downward into a bad place where they just get further and further distant from the coach because they feel guilty that they're not holding up their end of the bargain. And I do think it's important for the coach to sort of know their players and to be able to show them that they care. And I think ultimately that's just what the athletes want, is they want your attention. They want you to take a little bit of time out of your day to get them back on track. And so it's the coach's responsibility to know their athletes well enough and to take that extra step just to pull them aside and not to be afraid to have that conversation of, hey, what's going on? You're not acting the way you normally do. Something's going on and I can sense it and I'm here to help, and to sort of see if you can refocus them and okay, we missed this and that, but maybe we can make it up and do this to get you back on track.
Right. Just be able to pivot it somehow.
Right.
Lori Wilshire has a question. At what age do you start to do your goal settings with your athletes or your group?
At our dojo, we have a mantra: a goal set is a goal met. A goal set is a goal met. So if you set a goal, you meet that goal. And we start that from the tiny tigers 5 years old. A goal set is a goal met. And they're simple goals for the little kids. It's, I'm going to learn how to tie my belt is my goal. My goal is to get my white belt with the yellow stripe is my goal. My goal is to make my bed. My goal is to do my homework every day this week. It's really short term with the little kids, but everybody at my school has to set goals at every level. Every level. And a lot of times, and I think one of the reasons why our dojo is successful is that a lot of our parents love, because we're holding the kids accountable to doing their homework or their chores at home, and part of their goal is to help mom and dad every day this week with something, so little goals like that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be something that you have to work all year for. A goal can just be like something that's going to take you a week to get done. And then the other thing we do is we make a big deal out of it when people reach their goals. So when a parent is proud of their child, or a kid just reached their goal, they'll actually bring the goal sheet up to the sensei and actually say, "Hey, sensei, I just did my goal. I got honor roll on my report card," or, "I read my book every day this week." And the sensei will actually call them to the front of the class and say, "Hey, we want to recognize, Ewan Beaton today. He was able to tie his belt for the first time, and everybody give him a clap, and we actually give him a yellow stripe to put on his belt so that he got a tip on the end of his belt that he achieved his goal." And everybody that has a yellow tip on their belts in class, everybody knows that person's achieved their goal for this month. So it's simple stuff, but it keeps people motivated. It gives them something to work towards.
Right. All right.
So young. We do it young.
Yeah.
Not necessarily serious meetings and conversations, but we just hand out a piece of paper. Here's your goal. Bring it back to me. Your homework is to fill it out with your parents. And at the end of the week, you turn it in, and that's your goal for the month.
It just becomes second nature.
Correct.
All right. I think we're good. Maybe move on there. That's great stuff.
So the next part is the really powerful part. And that's your most powerful tool that you have is your mind. So now we're going to get into something called visualization, right? And visualization for me is the secret sauce. This is the stuff to me that really helps set apart you from everybody else. Everybody sets goals or tries to set goals. That's academic almost. But really the power of visualization is using your mind to see yourself succeeding before it ever happens. So see yourself reach your goal, live the moment in your mind before that moment ever happens. And what I believe when you do use visualization, I believe what happens is this. You've seen yourself reach, and I don't mean you just picture it in your mind and it's over. It has to be as real as possible. Like visualization, if my goal was to be on top of the podium at the World Championships, Olympic Games, I actually have to live that moment in my brain over and over and over again and live every moment of the experience. Watch myself in the semifinals, winning the match, bowing off the mat, hugging my coach, getting ready for the finals, going out, having my name announced, walking out on the mat, bowing to my opponent, getting ready, fighting the finals of the World Championships, seeing myself thrown with the textbook Tao Toshi or arm barring with Juji Gatami, watch the ref call the score, Wazari, Pone, whatever it is, give me the win, bow off the mat, shake hands and hug the guy, come off, wrap my arms around the coach, be so excited about the win, hear this loudspeaker, and now world champion from the United States of America, Jimmy Pedro. And then walk high-fiving your teammates through the hallway, putting on now it's your gis, back then it was your sweats, putting on your sweatsuit to get up on the podium, hearing your name announced, watching the flag go behind you, listening to the national anthem, bringing the other athletes up onto the podium and, taking the celebrity shots. Like, it's got to be so real that it's believable to your body. Like, I'm talking to you right now and I have goosebumps running through my body, electric goosebumps going through my body right now because I felt that moment, and I'm reliving that moment again by telling you this story. It's that real to me. And it's got to be that real for your athletes as well. When they're doing visualization, we basically take time at the end of practice, when we're not every practice, but when we're ramping up towards a big event that I know my athletes are preparing for. 1 month out, we'll start to, like, at the end of practice, we shut it down 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early. We let everybody lay down on the mat. We shut all the lights off. It's dead silent in there. And I say, guys, I want you to use your minds to see yourselves succeeding. It's your moment. It's your time. Go play it out in your brain as if it's going to happen for real. And I want you to go live it right now. Experience it. And it's just dead silence, and you'd be surprised at how quickly your brain runs through images. But it's got to be believable. You've got to live every moment. You've got to hear the crowds. Like, the more senses you can get involved, the more real it's going to be, right? And for me, it's goosebumps, it's breathing, it's listening to noises, it's hearing my name, it's visual images. It's really seeing that moment of success happen and all of the stuff that goes with it. It's not just the victory and the judo throwing, because that's quick and it's over. It's about all of the outside stuff as well. And the more you can make this real, and the more often you can do this, I believe the people that use visualization versus those that don't use visualization, here's what happens. The person that's trained their mind on visualization, when they get to the big moment to succeed, to do, to perform, to win, they've been there so many times mentally already that when the time comes, their body follows the mind and they just go right through the tunnel for success because they've already been trained to do it. They've already seen this happen in their mind. They believe it's possible. Right? Because they've convinced themselves that this is our destiny. This is where we're headed. This is what's supposed to be. And so when they get to that moment, it happens. They go right through it. Versus the people that don't use their mind, don't ever see it, don't commit to it, don't believe it, they hit a roadblock. They get there, they hesitate. They're not sure of themselves. There's doubt. They haven't sold. They haven't been sold that this is supposed to happen. They haven't accepted it as reality. It's still a fantasy. It's still a hope and a dream, but it's not real enough. And so they don't go through it. They don't unleash themselves. There's a mental block. There's fear. There's anxiety. I'm not sure. I haven't been here before. And so when there's hesitation, there's loss. And I believe that that's what stops people from doing stuff that they've never done before. And one of the things, like, we know that sports is about confidence, right? Confident people do great things. They're not afraid to take chances. They believe that they can make it happen, whether it's Michael Jordan or whoever it is. They believe. They're so confident in themselves. They want the ball in the last moment. They want to be the guy that's fighting for the gold medal or the team's on the line. I want to be that person to make or break. Like, they believe that they're the ones who have the golden touch that can make it happen. So confidence leads to winning. And how do you know you're the best when you've never been the best before? You've got to convince it. You've got to see it before it's possible. And one of the things that, when this first came to light for me as an athlete, because nobody ever trained me on anything, I learned a lot of this stuff on my own through experience. But Ewan was on the road with me. It was in the 1990s. I was going to Europe with Jason and a couple guys, and there was a series of tournaments where I went to France. I took a bronze in the Paris tournament. I did the camp afterwards. We got on a train by ourselves. We went to Austrian Open, and I took a bronze in Austria that year. I did the camp right after that. And I remember calling my dad at home. I said, Dad, I won a bronze in Paris. He's like, oh, Jimmy, that's terrific. Great job. Way to go. Keep it up. The next week, and from Austria, I called him again. I said, hey, Dad, I won a bronze in Austria. I had 6 more fights. He goes, Jimmy, that's great. Keep it up. He said, but he goes, hey, not for nothing, but it's okay to win a gold medal once every now and again. You know, you call me up, you win bronze, but when are you going to win a gold? Right? And at the time, I was the only American athlete at that time who was actually stepping up on the podium every tournament. You know, I was thrilled to death. I just had 13 matches in 2 weekends, 2 bronze medals in Europe. And here my dad is sitting at home in Boston, Massachusetts saying, hey, man, when are you going to win a gold? And, but it dawned on me then, and I thought to myself, it was the World Masters in Germany in 1995 when he said that to me. And that was the first time that I actually started using my brain and my mind to think about success. And I remember laying down in the bed and I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to do this for my pops. I'm going to win a gold medal this weekend. Because the next time I call him, I'm going to tell him I won gold. Right? So I laid down in that bed in Germany and I just pictured myself winning the event, like beating everybody. And used visualization and started thinking positively. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Jimmy's going to be gold medalist. I'm going to call my father. I'm going to tell him I won the gold. Like I started thinking about it and I pictured it in my mind. It was the first time in my career that I ever visualized success. First time. And it was because of a comment my dad made to me. And it was the next day I went out and I competed in Germany at the World Masters in 95. I beat Hidehiko Yoshi. The guy won the 95 Worlds that year. I beat him in the quarters. Unbelievable tournament. I ended up winning the gold medal in Germany at the World Masters that year. And I remember so happily picking up the phone, calling my father, say, hey, Dad, guess what? I won the gold. And it was magic, right? And from that moment on in my career, I always pictured success. And what I realized is that it wasn't until that time that I really committed that I could be the best guy in the world. I had always settled for winning a medal is great. Winning medals enough. If I win a gold, it would be wonderful. But it wasn't until I fully committed myself to being a champion and to being the best and seeing myself being the best, right? Because I had never won a world championship before. I had never won a Grand Slam event before. I had always medaled. But I wasn't sure if I was good enough to be the best in the world. So that visualization experience convinced me that it is all about seeing yourself do it before it's ever possible. And that's the message that I've always passed on to my students now is that you've got to believe it before you even are. You've got to walk like you're the champion. You've got to talk like you're the champion. Think about Muhammad Ali. I'm the greatest. In fact, I'm the double greatest. He built himself out to be better than he ever was. But there's a design and there's a purpose behind it. Mentally, he was making himself believe he was the best. And subliminally, he was telling his other people, hey, man, I'm the greatest. You can't beat me. There's no chance you're beating me. I'm the best. And he put a little doubt in everybody else's mind. And it's that swagger. It's that belief. It's that confidence that helps you win. Judo is about confidence. And so the only way to be the best before you're world champion, before you're Olympic champion, is to start seeing yourself and start believing in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, it can't happen. It won't happen. So the only way we can do that is we got to train our minds to see success and to believe and to convince us we're ready to win and we're ready to be champion. So that's visualization, and that's how you use your mind, and it's got to be a full experience. And if you think about it, right, somebody who, if you think about it, at that time in Germany, I wasn't any better that day than I was the previous week. Technically, physically, I was probably worse because I had just had 13 matches and two long training camps with double chess and judos. So I was physically probably not as superior, but mentally, I was ready and prepared to win. right? And once someone breaks through at the world level in judo, they typically continue to break through at the world level over and over and over again. And why is that? It's because they believe they belong. They've seen themselves. They know that they're worthy. So you've got to sort of learn to do that before you, and accept that you can do it before it'll ever happen. Okay.
If there's there's a question and then it's just a comment I'm going to say, just based on what Jimmy's saying. So the one thing Jimmy's saying is, you know what? There's the talk, there's the belief, but there's the walk. Okay. And when I say about walk, you know, during that time, you could tell that Jimmy had this belief because there wasn't a time he took a round off during the Paris camp. He'd walk up and he'd pick, this guy's a high righty. I'm not as good against high righties as I'm a lefty. And I'm going to pick every French high righty I possibly can. And he walked the walk of his belief, right? So you can't just talk it. You have to walk it as well. So that image, you might be a shy person inside, or your athlete might be a shy person, but when it's time to be that confident person, that's when you have to do that walk. Like, you can have both. You don't have to be Muhammad Ali, but you can. When it's time to walk the walk, you have to walk that walk, and you have to have that chest forward and say, "Hey, I'm going for it. I'm going for it." So, there's a couple questions here. First one is from Andrew, and it's just, when you struggled through your injury and you spent 6 months healing, how did you bring your championship mentality?
That was a tough one. That was one of the toughest moments of my life, really, because it wasn't an injury that I knew was going to heal. It wasn't something that I could have surgery for and they could fix it, and then there was a road to recovery, right? It was something where the discs were just bulging against my spinal cord, or not on my spinal cord, but pinching the nerves. And it was just time that I needed just time for it to heal. Back then, I used to just sit in a traction unit. They would pull over my door in my room with weights on it, and I would just fall asleep many nights with this thing pulling on my head, just to relieve some pain for me. At the very beginning, it was torture. It was torture because I couldn't do anything. My arm was numb 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, pins and needles right down my right chest, all the way down to my fingers. I just couldn't feel anything. It was just aggravating as anything. How did I bring myself back to be a champion? I listened to everybody. I listened to everybody. I talked to as many people as possible about how I could bring myself back. What can I do? And the word was, you just have to wait for your body to heal itself before you can physically do anything to help yourself. And I think I was just lucky, right? Between praying, between trying to pull my head off my body to relieve pressure, taking anti-inflammatories, I think my body finally started to heal itself where I could actually have range of motion in my neck again. And I just started training. The way I started training was, I got in a pool with a kickboard and I just kicked my feet, right? That's all I did, just to start getting in shape and to get my heart rate back up. And it was every morning, and it was winter time in Rhode Island. It was freezing cold, but I'd go to the pool every morning and I would just kick my feet as training because I couldn't do anything else. And the pool there was no, I was buoyant, so there was no pressure on my neck, on my spinal cord to swim. So that's how I started my rehab. That's how I started my comeback in training, was baby steps. And then I started with weightlifting. And the way I weightlifted was, I got on a Nautilus machine and I took my arm like this and I just pushed my arm. And I just pushed my arm with you have the pin that holds the plates. Pin had to come out. There was only 5 pounds on there. And I just trained my arm to move again. And it was just little by little, I started to see progress. I couldn't do one push-up, nothing. So little by little, I just said, make progress every day. Get better every day. That's the stronger I can get, the better I can get, the more I can move my arm. Then I'm back to competing. Then I'm back to training. And it took me about 6 full months before I could even put on a judo gi. And I had the courage to actually get in a judo position, because I didn't know if I moved my neck the wrong way, what was going to happen. And I remember my first judo training was like nothing but just slow uchikomi and moving and just trying to get a feel for judo again. But I just visualized I want to go to the Olympics. So you asked me, what did I visualize? I visualized competing in the Atlanta Olympics. That's what I wanted. Every morning I swam, every weight training I did, every little thing I did to get better, to get back, was all in hopes of competing in the 96 games in Atlanta in front of our hometown crowd.
All right, then the other question is, what if you have doubts about your physical ability? So I'm not sure that's kind of general, but again, it is doubts, right?
So here's what, I mean, my dad has had a huge impact on my life, right? There's no question. He's in my mind one of the greatest coaches that ever lived in the sport. And I don't mean technically, but I mean strategically, mentally, developmentally, strategically, how to get the most out of everybody. And you know, there's mental doubts are created by you. They're created by nobody but you. Like, why do you doubt your physical ability? Right? What if you think about everybody else? They're just another human being like you, right? It's man against man, woman against woman when it comes down to sports. And judo is a combat sport. It's a combat sport. You actually get to fight against the other person and impose your will, right, against them. It's not track. Listen, if you can't run under 10 seconds, you are not winning the 100 meters, period, right? We know that. But in judo, it's dynamic, and it's a combat sport, so anything is possible. And my dad always taught me from a young kid that anybody can be beaten on any given day. There is nobody that goes undefeated. And it is only the person that makes up their mind that they are going to beat that person. When you make up your mind you're going to beat somebody, then you're going to beat them. And you have to believe that you can beat anybody on any given day. You just got to make sure it's your day. You know, so if you fight with that mindset and you go after people with tenacity, doesn't matter what your physical ability is. If you have the heart, if you have the desire, if you have the will, if you will it to happen and you want it bad enough, you can beat anybody, right? And that's how champions get beat. That's how champions get broken. I mean, there was a point in time in Kosei Inoue's career, he was unstoppable, invincible, like killed everybody, threw everybody for Pony Chimata. But what happened at the 2000 Olympics? Man, the guy from Holland decided, I'm beating Kosei today. And he kicked his butt. And he didn't, and guess what? Inoue didn't place. So, you know, it was devastating to everybody, but somebody decided they were going to beat him and they were going to fight him different and you know, earn the victory, and they did. So you can't have any doubts. If you want to succeed, you can't doubt yourself. Because if you don't believe it's possible, then what are we in the game for? Right? You've got to fight with fearlessness. And that's one of the things that one of my mantras with Kayla was, and that's why her tagline is fearless. I said, man, if you want to win, you've got to be fearless. You're afraid of nobody. There's nobody that can ever beat you, Kayla. You've got to believe that. Down to your core, you have to believe nobody can beat you. And you have to walk out on that mat like you're King Kong. Like you're stronger, you're fitter, you're better than everybody else. You're tougher, and just be fearless. And I think that attitude, it'll come across in the way you fight. And if you think about in a judo contest, and if you think about it, if you hold back, if you have doubts, if you're not given 100%, and you're competing against somebody that's better than you, technically better than you, trained more than you, has the resources more than you do. If you hold back and you're not 100%, then you have no chance to win. The only chance you have is to be at 100%, is to go forward, be tenacious, be aggressive, be confident, give it your all. Don't hesitate. Don't think, just do. That's how you beat people that are better. You know, so I don't really ever have any doubts. You can't.
I'm just going to interject there. The one thing is those doubts are not are trained out of you in the effort you do in the gym and the dojo and everything else. So that fearless attitude, Kayla Harrison had that fearless attitude in the dojo, in the gym, on the track, and everything like this, right? It's not just I'm gonna show up at the tournament and I'm not gonna have doubts. It's like, you know what? I committed to my goal, like Jimmy said, and now it's 100%. Everything I do is 100%, and right, and you're all automatically getting rid of your doubts just because of the effort you give every day. Right, that's an important thing that has to be really seen in this. That it's not something you show up at the tournament site. It's a mantra you live. So
you've worked too hard. You've worked too hard to have any doubts.
Yeah, no, I think we can move on there, Jim.
Okay, so the next is just.
Oh, well, one second. There's a question that just came in. It says, even if you believe 100%, you will fail. How do you handle when there is failure, especially when somebody that has like given that 100% and crossed every T and dotted every I, you know, how do you move on from that?
Well, great question. And that leads us back to the beginning when I told you were going to fail. You were going to have losses. You weren't going to win all the time, right? It's having that perseverance. It's having that mindset that, okay, this time wasn't my time, but I will have my time to shine. It's staying focused, staying motivated, and understanding like everybody fails, and it's okay to fail. In fact, everybody has failed. Even the champions fail all the time. You just don't know about their failures because you don't read about it, you don't hear about it, right? You only hear about their successes, which is what we talked about at the beginning. And so examples of that failure in my career, 1990, I went to Japan. Ewan was there, but I went to Japan for the 1990 Kano Cup. And I showed up 6 weeks before the Kano Cup to train in Japan. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to sacrifice. I was making 65 kilos at the time. I weighed like 73 kilos while I was training in Japan twice a day, doing about 20, 25 rounds of randori a day, going for my runs to keep my weight down, training as hard as I possibly could, thinking, okay, I want to take this shot at this Kano Cup and win the tournament. And lo and behold, I go out there and my first round I won. I beat a guy from New Zealand. My second round, I went out there and I fought some Russian by the name of Kozbinian, who I had never seen before, never heard before. Went out there and the guy threw me for a pound. Okay, regroup. I'm in the repechage. Kozbinian goes on and he's in the final. So, okay, first round of the repechage, I fight some guy named Nakamura. Never knew who he was, didn't care. Went out there after him, fully set on my goals to win. And he throws me for a pound with Uchimata. So I sacrificed 6 weeks of my life to be in Japan. I had my goals. I thought I was going to win the tournament and was, because I had already done really well internationally up until that point. I had a lot of good wins under my belt. And here I am at the Budokan in Japan. It's pouring rain outside. I went out and I sat on the steps and again, just sobbed, crying like, man, I thought to myself, I stink. There's no way I'm ever going to win. Right? Like I just got smashed 2 opponents, 1 win, 2 losses. I'm outside on the steps going, man, is this really for me? You have those doubts, right? You've sacrificed so much of your life to do this. I'm on the mat, 4 or 5 hours a day. I'm running. I'm sleeping in between. I'm eating right. I'm lifting when I can, doing everything I can, man. How am I ever going to get there? Everybody fails. You're not going to win all the time. And the ones sometimes that you want the most are the ones that you lose and elude you. But you've got to understand that maybe it's a learning lesson. What could I have done differently that might have helped me win? Where did I go wrong? Did I cut too much weight? What do I need to work on? Why did that guy throw me for a pound? Why did I lose the match that way? What areas you got to reassess. And you've got to learn from your failures and you've got to figure out, okay, I'm committed to my goal. I'm committed to being a champion. So what am I going to do to get better? And that's the one thing that my dad always stressed with me. He said, Jimmy, it's not how hard you train. It's not how many rounds of randoris you do. It's what you're working on during those randoris. What new techniques did you work on? What new techniques did you learn while you're there? You know, go ask the guy to show you the move that you don't know how to do. Like, you've got to be evolving and getting better from your judo. You know, so I would say that, you know, regroup, learn, figure out how you're going to get better, and get right back on the path and strive for success. And I can tell you, after the 1990 Kano Cup, which was December of 1990, you know, 7-8 months later in Barcelona at the World Championships in 1991, I ended up finishing third place on the podium. As a 20-year-old, I took third in the Worlds just 7-8 months later after that Kano Cup. You know, so, you know, I figured out a way to regroup, keep going, keep pushing. This is just a roadblock, right? This is just something you ran into, an obstacle that's on your journey to success. And you've got to have that mindset that okay, I didn't win this time, but there will be a next time, and I'll be better and stronger and ready for that time.
Perfect. There's a question. We'll move on after this one question here. It's what advice would you give to a parent that trains with their sons, father and son dynamic in the mind? We are similar belts in judo. We've switched from national wrestling, and you know, they're very competitive and hard training. So, do you have any advice considering you and your father had you know, obviously a great relationship? Your father was a national and international level player before he became a coach, and you know, any insight would be great.
Yeah, it's a hard dynamic. There's no question it's a hard dynamic. My dad was not my friend. And I think that's the difference. He was a father who always unselfishly looked after my best interest. He wanted me to be the best athlete that I could be. And he was brutally honest with me. He wasn't anybody that pulled any punches or held back what he was going to say, you know, to hurt my to not hurt my feelings. You know, he didn't look at it like, when he was my dad, he was my dad. But when he was my training on the mat, he was my coach. And he told me like it was. And if I didn't fight a certain way or I didn't do something right, he was really hard on me. You know, and I remember many a time I had won the nationals in the United States when I was 18 years old. And I remember coming off the mat, beating the guy that just went to the Olympics in '88, all excited. And I beat all these guys that my dad talked about for years in the sport. You know, Doug Tono and Jimmy Martin and Joe Marshall and all these guys that I heard my dad talk about being on all these trips. I beat every single one of them at that event and then won the tournament. And I came off the mat like, yeah, Dad, I did it. And he went, get over here. And he grabbed my gi and he pulled me aside. He said, hey, if you continue to do that, you are not going to win. I said, hey, I just won the nationals, man. But I don't care. It's not about winning the nationals. It's about winning international events. It's about being the best judo player you can be. So I don't want to hear about it. You know, so my advice is, depends on your sons and what your relationship is. If you're going to be their coach, then be their coach. If you're going to be their training partner, then be their training partner, be there to support them, and let somebody else be their coach. I don't know, you know, one thing my dad did, which was probably the smartest thing he ever did for me, is that there came a certain period of time in my life, I think I was about 16 years old, he said, listen, I never made it to the Olympics. He said, I want you to go and train with the coaches and with other athletes that have been there and done that. Because I want you to feel that they're nothing special. But I want you to be around them so you can feel what it's like to be around them. I want you to touch their gi. I want you to learn from them. I want you to experience life and know that it's tangible, it's possible. Right? Because I don't have that here. I never did that. And he sent me to Erwin Cohen. He sent me to Pat Burris. He sent me to Neil Adams. He sent me other places as a father. Even though he was my coach, I want you to be the best athlete you can be. And the only way to do that is to leave home and get exposed to other places and pull the best pieces from all of them to make a complete player. And that was something that my dad did for me. So if you're your son's coach, then be their coach and be hard on them and tell them like it is. Don't sugarcoat it. If you're going to be their training partner, then be that and support them financially and get them to practice and let someone else lead, guide, and direct their career.
Perfect. All right, let's keep moving on. This is fantastic, and we'll get the last 25 minutes here.
So the next thing is the next part of after visualization is I call it positive self-talk. I call it having a mantra, having some sort of message that a positivity message of some kind that you tell yourself over and over again. It's almost like reconfirming what it is you want to do. And with each of my athletes, with Travis, with Kayla, with the different athletes, we always had a mantra what I would tell them, and it was sometimes it was just special for the event. Sometimes it was just something where we had a conversation about something and I gave them a pep talk and I said a certain comment and that comment ended up being what we would tell ourselves. But think of it as that childhood story of the little engine that could, right? If you think about it, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. You're talking yourself into success. You're talking yourself up that hill. I'm going to climb, I'm going to climb, I'm going to climb, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there. And you just reinforce the fact that you are positively going to succeed at whatever it is you set out to do. And, when I was younger, my mantra, I used to tell myself, I am a winner. I am a champion. I am the best in the world. And say it like you mean it. I used to repeat it to myself over and over again. I am a winner. I am a champion. I'm the best in the world. I'm a winner. I'm a champion. I'm the best in the world. I'd look myself in the mirror every time I went to the bathroom in between rounds, and you do have to go to the bathroom quite often in between your judo matches, as we all know. But afterwards, I'd be in there washing my hands, and I'd look myself in the mirror, and I'd say, you're a winner, you're a champion, you're the best in the world. Let's go. And it helped motivate me to fight harder, be more confident, understand that I'm going to win. And that's what helped me. With Kayla, I remember telling her, would repeat her name. Kayla Harrison, Olympic champion. The day of the Olympics in 2012, that's all I told her. Kayla Harrison, Olympic champion. Nobody is stopping us today. Nobody's stopping us. And I just kept repeating the fact that you're going to be Olympic champion. One match, one win, on to the next one. Kayla Harrison, Olympic champion. And I'd say it with conviction. I would say it loud. I would make her believe that it's possible. And I would just keep playing before she fought, after she fought. And when she'd win, I high-five her. I told you it's going to happen today. You're going to be the Olympic champion. Let's go. On to the next one. Something that keeps the athletes excited. You're right. I am going to do it. You're right. We're on that road. It's so powerful to have some sort of mantra or mindset that helps you be positive for that day, to have that positive energy running through your brains to help reinforce the belief that it is going to happen, and it's the whole day. It's from the moment you wake up until you're done fighting that day. It's that message hearing that it is going to happen for you. And I want to tell you one story about Travis. So for those of you, I'm sure most of you are very familiar with Travis's story. So in the 2012 Olympics, he loses the semifinals to the German in the semifinals. And after the match, well, I know you guys all know because we know he fought Antoine for bronze, right? So we know the story. But when I fully believed and thought that Travis had won the semis, but that's irrelevant. I could not get him up after that semifinal match. He cried for 45 minutes. He lost everything that he had inside his being after that match. And I grabbed him and I said, listen, you've got to get off this floor. You've got to get up for this bronze medal match, because if you don't finish with a medal, you might be devastated for the rest of your life. Get up and let's go. And I couldn't get him up. He cried for another half hour. It was one of those things, he just was drained of every ounce of energy in his body, and unfortunately for him, they grabbed him, said, hey, get off the floor. You got to go out and you got to fight right now. And he was energyless when he fought Antoine. Up to that point, he had never lost to Antoine in his career. He had just beat him 6 weeks before in the Czech Open by Ippon. Don't get me wrong, Antoine was climbing and getting better, and it was getting closer and closer and tougher, and no doubt he deserved that medal. Not taking anything away from Antoine at all. He earned everything he got. But Travis was devastated, right? Now he's got no medal. And his teammate just won the gold, right? So Kayla wins a gold. His best friend growing up, Marty Malloy, wins a bronze. Travis comes home with nothing. Back to my dojo. For the next 4 years of his life, 4 years, every little kid that sees Kayla also sees Travis in the same dojo. Oh, Kayla, you won the Olympics. How are you? How did you do, Travis? He was reminded every day of his life for 4 years that he didn't medal. And it ate at his heart like you've never seen. I know it did. I felt it for him. I felt that pain. And he trained hard, and it was a bumpy road. From 2012 to 2016 was very bumpy for Travis. He had all kinds of obstacles he had to overcome physically. He had sepsis. He had knee problems. He had back problems. Don't get me wrong. But leading up to the 16 games, there was like 7 months straight where Travis got better and stronger every day for 7 months from January till he fought at the 2016 Olympics in Rio. He won the World Masters a couple months before the games. He knew he could do it. But the thing that made him win more than anything else was his mind and his mindset. He had waited 4 years to compete in those Olympics in 2016. Now, don't get me wrong. Before that, the 3 years before that, he never won a world medal. He had won and placed in some of the Grand Slams and Grand Prix, but he'd never won a world medal in his life before. He'd never won an Olympic medal. The morning of the Rio Olympics, Travis Stevens woke up for competition, came down to meet me to go on the bus, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, are you ready? Are you ready today?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Sensei, I am going to shock the world today." That's what he told me. "I'm going to shock the world today." I said, "Okay, let's go. I'm excited. Let's go." Right? So we get to the Olympic venue to warm up for the event. And everybody in his weight class is like nervously grabbing their partner and they're doing their uchikomis and they're trying to get out their nervous sweat and nervous energy. And Travis Stevens puts on a pair of swimming shorts that they gave him. Like they were the bathing suit. It said USA on it. And he put his tank top on, USA on the front of his chest. He taped up his fingers and he just started dancing around the gym. He was like jogging lightly, dancing, doing these calisthenics, big smile on his face from ear to ear. He was like a little kid that I had brought to an amusement park for the first time. He was so happy that that moment had finally arrived where he could redeem himself. And I know while everybody else was nervous and everybody else was like anxious about competing, he was like a caged tiger that I just opened the door and said, "Go." Because he could not wait to step on that mat and fight again. He had waited 4 years for it. And it was that mindset that I'm going to shock the world today that got him through. Because on paper, you would not have bet on Travis to win, to be in the finals of those Olympics. There's no way. The cards weren't, but he believed. He believed he was going to do it. And when we were strategizing and planning and looking at who he was going to fight, and the seeds came out for the Olympics, I looked at him and I said, "Travis, you've got the best possible draw for you that you could have ever asked for these Olympics. All of the planets have aligned, and it is your time. It is your time to be a champion. There's no doubt." And it just happened for him. But it wasn't by accident. It was by design. And I told him that day, his positive mindset and mantra was, "Nobody is stopping you today. Nobody. Nobody's stopping you." And that kid believed from match 1 all the way to the finals that he was going to will himself to win. And guys, his technique it's great, but there's better people, right? Technically, there's better people. But he wanted it. He prepared for it. Mentally, he was ready to accept it. And he just refused to lose. He wasn't going to let anybody stop him. And I do believe that's mindset. And it's one of the big reasons why he was successful in Rio. So that's the message. That's what I wanted you to hear. It starts with understanding that you've got to be professional. You've got to train your butt off. You've got to do all the physical stuff. It's accepting the fact that you're going to fail along the way. Not every road to victory is a rosy one that's a steady climb to the top. You're going to crash. You're going to burn. You're going to have those dark moments. But be committed to what you do. Set your goals. Visualize yourself succeeding. Believe. Never stop believing. You've got to never, if you're going to succeed, you've got to never stop believing. Because when you don't believe in yourself anymore, I can tell you one thing, it will never happen. Right? If you stop, it's never going to happen. You've got to believe. And at the end, right, my goal in my career was to be Olympic champion. I didn't get there. I can accept it. It's not a failure. I believe I did everything in my power to be the best athlete I could have been. Right? And I accept the fact that I didn't win the Olympic Games. Okay, but I believe that, I say all the time, like these medals here, these ones that sit in my closet every day that I strive so hard for, these to me are as good as gold because they represent everything I stand for, right? All the sacrifice, all of the hard work, all of the devastation, all the pain, all the blood, all the tears, like to me, they're gold because they represent a life's work, right? And whether they were bronze or they were nothing, they still would have been my life's work. And I don't know, and I can't say positively that I'd be content, but I had a wonderful career, and in life, the experiences that I had with people like Ewan, like Nicholas Gill, Jason Morris, like Koga, the list goes on with famous, great judo players, and more importantly, great people that I got to meet along the way. Man, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And if I could do it all over again, I would.
Absolutely. A few things. There's a few questions that came up earlier. Just
Sure.
one thing to interject on Jimmy's story about Travis in 2012, and Antoine was in the back watching this epic semifinal. So again, if you haven't seen the semifinal of Travis versus Ole Bischoff at the Olympics, you need to go watch it because the intensity was at this incredible thing, right? And Antoine didn't have a good record against both of them. He was actually hoping it was going to be Bischoff he was going to fight. But as the fight's going on, Nicholas is watching it, and Nicholas is his coach. And just like that little bit of mantra, Nicholas automatically saw whoever's going to lose this fight, they're not going to have anything for the bronze medal. Like it's impossible, or it's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult for them to rise themselves back to that level in such a short time. And again, then it becomes the different self-talk, again, for Antoine. It was like, hey, and so it's those two positions, people that were prepared on that day, you're waiting for that break. And if you're prepared on that day, you know what? To win the world championships or win a world medal you don't have to beat everybody. You have to win your draw. And what happens during that day, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of changes, and a lot of shocks. And you just have to be ready. And everything that Jimmy's talked about is about just being ready for that moment. Be ready for that moment, and put yourself in that discussion. All right. There's a couple questions. One of the questions came from Andrew from Regina. He just said, hey, what was your best favorite judo moment? You can be athlete or coach.
Well, I mean, as a coach, there's a lot of them, right? But as a coach, it was helping Kayla win her first Olympic title, right? Because that had never been done by an American. In my entire life, I wanted to be the first to win. But I believe it was destiny for her. I believe that it wasn't meant to be for me. I needed to learn all that I learned, and I needed to, gather all this intelligence and have all these experiences in order for a bigger purpose and a bigger cause. And that was helping this amazing athlete, come from where she was, as low as she was, to the top of the podium. There was a design there. And I was super proud and excited to be a part of that whole process. And it was an amazing moment. It was exhilarating. It was exciting. And I think because I did it with somebody else, it wasn't just about me. It was that much more special. It was awesome. So helping her win the gold was incredible. As an athlete, I would say it was the World Championships and winning it in 1999, winning the Worlds in 99. And the reason I say that is because I was like back then the Worlds was every 2 years. You know, it was every 2 years fighting in the World Championships. And in 95 I had taken a bronze medal. 96 I won a bronze in the Olympics. 97, a week before the Worlds, I got injured. Somebody got thrown onto my leg a week before the Worlds, so I didn't get to fight in the 97 Worlds. So I had to go 4 years without fighting in a World Championships. And the first Worlds that I got a chance to fight in was 1999. And at the time, my dad really didn't get a chance to see me compete ever. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and my dad didn't travel with me that often, but he was my coach. And I felt so good going into the 99 World Championships that I actually told my father that I wanted to pay his way. I wanted to buy, Dad, I said, I want to buy you a ticket. I want you to come watch me at the 99 World Championships because I think I'm going to win. And it was one of those things that I'm glad I did because he got to be in the stands and watch me win my World Championship. And that was a special moment because my entire life he's given me everything to put me in that position.
All right, a little funny question here. Did you ever fight Yoan in a competition? And I can answer that. So in 1990 at the CNE in Toronto, I fought up weight division. I fought 65. And at the time, Jimmy was like, he fought junior the day before. I'm a year older than Jimmy. So then, I didn't, then he had to make weight again because he had to make weight twice. So then we fought on the senior day and we fought back then. You came back for the gold. So I fought him in the semifinal. I lost on a Cheeto or decision or something. Again, I'm a high righty, something he didn't like. And there was a French guy in our division, and he was a lefty, and Jimmy fought him twice, and got rid of the guy in like seconds, and I lost to him. But after I lost to him because his dad came up to me and said, you know what? I wanted you to fight Jimmy again in the final because he struggled with righties. Again, it's one of those things that the Pedros were always thinking about was, how do we get the matchup that's going to make my boy better, right? That was more important than winning the CNE. What was important was, where do I go to find people that are going to make my kid better by being able to train with them? So yes, I did lose to Jimmy.
I think we only fought that one time, right?
Yeah, it was only one time.
So we were both young, super young in our careers, but you guys don't take anything away from Yoan. Yoan was gold medalist at the Pan Am Games. He had a heck of a career. He was professional in everything he did. We used to train around the world together, and he had a fantastic career.
Yeah, and you know what? I never achieved the huge results, but again, the end product, like I said, I that ability to travel, to have these experiences. Hey, you have no regrets, especially at this age. When you get older, you're just like, how lucky was I? That was just awesome, and can I do it again? Right. There's another, I have a question, and this is especially for the coaches and for the situation we're dealing with. So what do you say to the young athletes that might be losing some motivation because of COVID-19? It doesn't look like, there's going to be competition for a while. What do you say to them? Like their coaches are saying, hey, you still have to train. And even the coaches out there that are like, hey, I don't see competitions, and they're getting a little unmotivated and frustrated with the whole thing. What is your opinion on everything?
Well, I think it's a time when, it's in some ways it depends on each athlete's a little bit different, right? But because some athletes need a break or needed a break, right? You have some athletes that complain about how tired they are mentally, how tired they are physically. We never get a break. It's one tournament after another. Judo's year round, and so now for those athletes, like, hey, you got your break that you asked for, maybe an extended break, but you got your break. Now's the time during the break to really focus on getting bigger, getting stronger, focusing on our fitness, doing some things and working on stuff that we never typically have the time to work on. And so it's about taking the time to improve, learn a new technique, or learn, a new part of the game that you need to get better at. So it's a chance to get better without having a tournament right away for. So, I'd say take the opportunity to develop something new with your players. You can't do lots of randori, so they can't do that. So spend the time wisely on not doing the same old stuff, but take the time to learn some new stuff and make it fun that, hey, man, when you come back, we're going to be able to work on that new sode or the new tile or the new whatever that we spent so much time in the off season working on. And, really focusing on the weight room aspect, I believe, like the physical conditioning, so that when judo does come back, you're going to be fit, you're going to be ready to just do 100% judo. We don't have to worry about your strength and conditioning so much because you've done it,
Absolutely.
But and the other thing you have to let them know is like, this is where champions are made in tough times, right? So this is what makes champions. How are you gonna beat the players that are better than you? How are you gonna catch up to them? Well, if they're maybe less motivated right now, now's your time to make those gains. Because if we both kept training and they kept training, you kept training, you'd be behind, right? Because they're gonna keep climbing, you're gonna keep climbing. Maybe now is the time where they're demotivated, and so they're not training as hard as they used to. They're not putting in the extra time and hours. Now's your chance to catch those people and to get better than they are, so that when the first tournaments do come, you're ready, and you'll be better than they are.
Yeah, perfect. Any last questions, guys? We've been here 90 minutes. We don't have that much more. We got 1 second. There are a couple questions here. Let's see. Let me just look here. Which of the current coaches, which coach on the current international circuit do you find particularly inspiring or interesting as a coach, or might be doing something different that's caught your eyes?
Well, it's somewhat difficult to put a name to that because every coach has different circumstances. So if you think about like Izio Gamba did a fantastic job with Russia and the Russian national team for 2012 and 2016, right? But he also had $20 million a year budget to do it with, right? So it's not that impressive when you think, he's coming from a great nation with tons of great athletes, tons of great coaches, but he also came with an amazing budget. And to do what he did was spectacular. 3 Olympic gold medals. He pulled that country together. He organized it. So I see him as a good mastermind for pulling all the pieces together. Same with like Kosei Inoue. One of the things that the Japanese have done, they're doing a little bit non-traditional Japanese stuff. They're focusing a lot more on weight training and being strong and being physical. Their training is different. It's not just judo anymore. And I think what you see is a much stronger, more dynamic Japanese team and more dominant Japanese team than you've ever seen before. And part of that's because as a coach, his mind is not stuck in the mud like a lot of the Japanese old school people are, which is judo, more judo. He's actually like more of a free thinking person who focuses on mind training, focuses on physical conditioning, does things a little bit differently. And I think that's led to a more successful Japanese team. I'd say the one team that really stands out the most to me right now is the Kosovo team.
Yeah.
They've got some dominant females, and that 73-kilo guy, like, they've got no training partners. They've got no budget, but somehow they're producing some world-class athletes, and that's from a very small program. Somebody who's up against all odds. If you gave that guy the talent they have in Japan or Russia, man, he would shine too.
Okay. Last question. It came from Lori. It's well, let me just get to it. Make sure I get to it. How do you stay motivated as a coach when you start noticing, your athletes are demotivated? Like, how do you try to like stay motivated to be able to like get them to? Because you start to lose it yourself. So yeah, any thought on that? And that'll be the last question, and then we'll do a little goodbye here.
I'd say the biggest thing is to change it up as much as possible. You know, in order to in this time it's really difficult because it feels monotonous to all of us. Like you go there, you do the same thing, it's social distance this, it's uchikomi's that. It's I'd say have less sessions, but have more engaged sessions with the athletes. I don't know how often you train, but if it's 4 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever it is, try to reduce the number of days, but have more intense trainings, have more motivated trainings for them. And then also try to do things a little bit differently. If you can change the venue and do it outside, if you can, take some time and do, some mountain running or do some uchikomi outside without a gi, like, go to a different place and do some drills and do some stuff where it keeps them fresh and they feel right now they need to feel part of something. It's not so much what you're doing as much as, how you're doing it, and making it fun and making it memorable so they want to stay and they're part of a community, they want to come to practice.
Yep, perfect. Okay, guys, I'd just like to thank Jimmy. It's always a pleasure to hear his words of wisdom. I really truly think that. Also, I'm just going to give a little shout out. He's still, if you go online, you can find a lot of his information. I know he's got the American Judo system, but that's open to anybody to buy and purchase and stuff like this. And Judo Fanatics and then his companies. Everything he does is professional, and that started at an early age. It continues now, and like I said, it's just fantastic to always be involved with such a quality person. And thank you for stepping away from your daughter's basketball and the great hot, nice weather in Boston. So thank you very much, Jimmy.
You're welcome, Ewan. Hey guys, thank you all. Best of luck to all of you. I look forward to seeing you again. Hopefully, a Quebec Open this year.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.